What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. As you guys know, I am a huge fan of Next Fest, which is usually every quarter at least on Steam. And basically what it does is it highlights lesser known titles, indie games and things like that. It's not to say that we don't see AAA releases and stuff like that featured during this event as well. Of course, the most recent one had something like Delta Force, for example, which was absolutely awesome. Had a lot of fun playing that with friends. But oftentimes it's the real gems that you find from lesser known developers, smaller games, everything like that. And I usually have a lot of fun digging through all of the different genres and trying to pick out some awesome games. That being said, I have a list of games here for you. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 games which really impressed me, or I just had a lot of fun with during the Next Fest. I will also mention that most of these games that I'm going to be mentioning now actually still have an active demo available, since they tend to keep these around for a little while longer after Next Fest. So absolutely go check them out. If any of this piques your interest, then go check it out, wishlist the game if you think it's cool or something like that, and we can celebrate when the shit comes out. Okay, let's get started. So the first one here is called Ballionaire, and I mean, trust me, the name had no bearing on me picking this game. Absolutely had nothing to do with it, though I'm lying. I think the name is fucking awesome. But that's luckily not the only awesome thing about this game. Basically what this is it's, first of all, it's a roguelike. So it's a roguelike in a weird situation because essentially it's a pachinko machine that you play, right? And so you drop the ball in at the top and then it kind of like filters through to the bottom of the triangle. And what you're doing is you're supposed to hit a certain score with every X amount of balls. So like, for example, you'll get 5 drops, and in those 5 drops you have to get like 25,000 or something like that. Now the roguelike part in this is the fact that you can choose different blockers which you essentially put onto the pachinko board, and these all do different things, like capturing the ball and then splitting it into different kinds, or teleporting it somewhere on it, or basically, you know, as long you get blockers that if you don't hit them then they give you a multiplier on your score. But also a lot of these basically interact in weird ways. So there's multiple different boards that you can play. There's multiple different blockers. Everything, of course, our selection in the actual demo itself was not a lot. Like we were kind of like restricted from a lot of the things, but a lot of what I saw I really enjoyed. I like the art style. I like basically the humor in it. I think the icons and the blockers, all that stuff is really cool, and I like the idea of it. I'm a pretty big fan of roguelites in general because the point is you can pretty much, you know, play them almost indefinitely in a way. And I'm also a huge fan of like fuck off games, meaning like, you know, you just got like 15 minutes to fuck off, then, you know, this is a cool game to play. So Ballionaire definitely fits in that niche for me. It's absolutely a game that I can imagine that would come to something like Steam Deck, and that's obviously really cool to also play this portably. I've got no indication if that is the case, but I mean, it makes no sense why it wouldn't. And unfortunately, there is one bad side to this, and that at the moment right now, there is not any clear release date for this game. It only has coming soon on the store, but the demo is still available. Go and check it out. I had a lot of fun with this. Again, like I said, it's a great game to kill some time with. You might enjoy it as well. Commander Quest is heavily inspired by the game Slay the Spire. You can definitely see the influence there. I'm not trying to say that it's, you know, copying the recipe or anything like that, because I also think there's other games that have done what Slay the Spire did before. It's just that Slay the Spire sticks closest into memory just due to the fact of the amount of hours that I put into it. Recently I made a trip for about 12 weeks where I was overseas and I only had my Steam Deck with me, and I kind of like decided to replay a bunch of games. One of those games was Slay the Spire, and before I knew it, that was the only game that I played for those 12 weeks, and I didn't touch any of the other stuff. Now, we're not talking about Slay the Spire right now. We're talking about Commander Quest, but this looks to be getting its hooks into me in exactly the same way that Slay the Spire did. So it combines deck building, where essentially you have cards. These cards summon units, and you travel from the left side of the map to the right side of the map in a big battle plan. You have different areas that you can visit. These can have fights that you have to do, or treasure chests that you have to open, or quests that you have to complete. And basically when you come onto a map that you have to defeat someone, you take turns summoning, you know, like soldiers and stuff like that, spells and things like that, onto the battlefield with your cards. These cards can be upgraded. You can spend resources to upgrade. You can find brand new ones that you didn't have before, and you can expand your deck that way. it's really, really cool. And the game spends, at least the tutorial and in the demo, spends a bit of time explaining the different systems to you, and basically how different units can start in the middle of the map, and some units are support units, other units can basically have special conditions to have them appear. But I just had like a huge amount of fun with this, because there's a lot of like, and this is just in the demo, so there's a lot we haven't seen here yet, but there's a lot of like depth built into this, where certain units obviously counter other units, and it makes sense for you to kind of like see what you're going to go up against. And sometimes you'll run into a situation where you bring the wrong units, and therefore, you know, you're kind of like on the back foot. But yeah, I just really like it. I think it's got a great graphic style as well. I think this just reeks of quality, and it looks really, really good. I have no idea, knowing how far off this is, but because again, it only has coming soon in the store, but I super hope that it is close, because I really, really enjoyed this. And one of these games can literally just steal time from you, and it definitely looks like Commander Quest might do exactly the same. Demo is still available on the store, so check it out. The juvenile part of me has trouble saying the name of the next game, but Dongwu Odyssey is basically not just a funny sounding name, but actually a pretty decent game behind it. So basically what this is it's a Darkest Dungeon kind of vibe. Same, you couldn't not look at this game and say that there's some of Darkest Dungeon's DNA in it. Darkest Dungeon, of course, and its sequel has a very specific art style, and this is not a copy of that, but it's certainly in the same vein. And then in the style of game, it's pretty much the exact same thing. So you have your units, you have different lanes from 1 to 4. Your units have different abilities, and they can attack the enemy lanes in different lanes. And basically, it's super hard, super brutal. You have to sometimes strategize and hope for the best. Sometimes you're just rolling the dice, and you know, if you get unlucky and you get a bad ability on you or something like that, then of course you will suffer. The game has systems in it as well for, like, you know, your heroes becoming despondent and things like that. And basically, you have all of these different animals. They are in actual fact called Dongwu, so that's basically where the title comes from. You are the Dongwu, and you go on an Odyssey. But basically, this seems to be very heavily inspired, as I said, by games of Darkest Dungeon's ilk, and it seems to be hella tough. So if you're a fan of that sort of thing, and I know there's a ton of people out there, myself included, Darkest Dungeon is very famous for a reason. It is super brutal and very hard, but very satisfying once you actually get it. Very much like old XCOM games and stuff like that, right? Like it is really hard, but it is so satisfying when you actually pull something off. Now, there is one thing that is concerning for me to this game, and that it kind of like feels like it's two games that are fighting against each other. What I mean by this is, I don't know if the footage that I captured will illustrate this without me explaining it particularly, but the actual gameplay of the game is obviously Darkest Dungeon kind of vibe, and it feels like that and everything. But then when you get into like the menus, and when you get into like the main, like, let's say hub, the city itself, this is where the game starts becoming a little bit funny, because it's almost mobile-esque in its way in which it presents the information to you. Likewise, the game has tons of cosmetics and stuff like that, so you can almost like see the kind of monetization that this game would go for. Obviously, your Dongwu, your heroes can all be dressed up and equipped in all these customizations, so you can make your party look really cool and stuff like that. But something else is also the fact that you can level up your heroes, and these level up items are actually that. They are items that you get rewarded with that you use to level up. That leads me to believe that most likely these items can also potentially be sold in the shop. Now, I am not by any means confirming that this will be pay to win, or there'll be a way for you to essentially just buy everything you need and level it up. But the way that the systems in the game are set up at the moment right now, in terms of like when you go into the main hub and you see all the menus and the way that you finish quests and everything like that, feels like a mobile gacha game. It kind of has that vibe. It's got a very Raid Shadowlands-y kind of vibe, like once you get into the fucking menus and once you get into the shops and stuff. And that just leads me to believe that there's going to be some way for you to just like sort of fast track your way through the game, which is of course like super sad, and so I will reserve judgment on this. Now, the good news is this game's not far away. It comes out on October 31st. At the very least, I think it goes into early access on October 31st. So it's not going to be that long until we can see what exactly is cooking underneath the hood with this game, but I'll keep a lookout on it, and of course if it's sexy, then you'll probably see more of it on the channel. That brings us to Jotunnslayer Hordes of Hel, and I had a ton of fun with this demo. I'd actually been playing it before Next Fest, and then when Next Fest came out, they actually added an additional hero for you to try out, as well as some additional skills and things like that that you can unlock. But as you can tell from the footage running in the background, this is a game in the same vein as like Deep Rock Galactic, Soulstone Survivor, Grandpappy Vampire Survivor, but essentially this is a roguelike horde survival where you go through waves of enemies that try to kill you. Only the flavor here is heavily Norse inspired, so you have like Loki and Thor and all this shit in here in terms of like the abilities that you can choose. But this is on Unreal Tech 5 if I'm not mistaken. It looks a lot like Unreal Tech 5. I didn't do too much investigating, but I'm pretty sure it is, and it is a fucking like beauty to behold. This game looks amazing. I like all the effects. I like the idea. I'm a huge fan of Norse mythology, and there seems to be a lot here that we're going to be able to do. The demo itself only had one of the maps on it and only had, I believe, 3 of the heroes. We by normal demo had 2 of the heroes. We got the additional one and some additional cards and stuff we could pick, but it also has a system in it where you can actually upgrade. That's how games like this work. So every consequent run after the first one is easier because you're getting materials which you upgrade, and that means you can get further and you can complete them more. What I like about this is it has a mission system in it. So you're playing and then it'll be like, okay, you got to go over here and kill this boss, and if you do that in the time, then you get a bigger reward, and then there's, go survive this fucking ice storm for 2 minutes, and if you do that, but basically you're waiting for the big timer on the top of the map to expire, and once it gets close to that, there's going to be like a super boss that spawns in the map somewhere. You're gonna go over to that dude, you're gonna fight him, you're gonna kill him, and then if you're successful, you will get a big reward and you'll be done with the map, and you'll get your XP and your stuff and everything like that. You'll upgrade and then you'll go in again. I really like this. I really like the fact that it also has a release date somewhere in Q4. We've kind of like just begun Q4, so it's either going to be somewhere between now and the next, I guess, like 10 weeks or something like that. Hopefully it drops in November somewhere. But super also going into early access, of course, I believe. I don't think it's the full release, but don't quote me on that. But super looking forward to this one. It ticks a lot of the boxes that I like in games like this. I have many hours on Vampire Survivors, like I'm sure a lot of you do. Deep Rock Galactic is my is a really fun one for me as well, and I also like the fact that these games translate very well to portability, so Steam Deck and things like that usually run these fine. Now the fact that this is Unreal Tech 5, if I'm right, if it is Unreal Tech 5, might throw a wrench in the works there. I don't know how Steam Deck feels about Unreal Tech 5, but that being said, super enjoyed this demo. It's still up on the store if you want to check it out as well. If you're a fan of games like this, absolutely give it a fucking whirl. This is a highly polished product already, and I'm super excited to see what happens to the game once it launches. Our 5th title here is actually one that is out already. So at the time when I was recording this footage, it had not released yet, but Lynked Banner of the Spark is out since the 22nd of October. And basically what this is it's a hack and slash co-op roguelike. So with base building, parts to it and everything like that. But essentially, you play this hero and you fight against all these robots and stuff like that. And you start out with this very limited, you kind of like escape from prison, spoilers, sorry, and then you get to this area where you start setting up your base, and then you get missions that you have to go out and essentially rescue vendors and build your team. By bringing these vendors back, that's how you get your blacksmith, and that's how you get your shop, and that's how you get this and everything. And basically it has this super big map that you can eventually just build all of your facilities and everything on. It's got very decent and responsive combat. I like it. It took a little bit of getting used to due to the fact of like how you control the direction that you face in when you fight, but it's got a combo system. You can basically get different kinds of items which allow you to fight differently. Your hero itself can also upgrade in different ways where you can focus heavily into AoE damage or direct damage, things like that. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I didn't pay too much attention to the story, of which there is a lot. There are cutscenes, there's dialogue, everything like that, and it's all presented in a very cool way. But with these demos, it's kind of like you never know how long a time you have to play them, so I was kind of like just pile driving through these. So unfortunately, story tends to be the thing that I don't pay too much attention to it, but I also do it kind of like purposefully, because if I do end up liking the game, it means that when I actually get my hands on the game, then it's not spoiled, anything like that. Now, as of me recording this footage, I have not actually purchased it, and I have not actually started playing it, simply because of the fact that when I was going to the store to just, you know, get my facts correct and just check some things, I was like, holy shit, this is out. So yeah, I'll definitely be checking it out over the weekend, and I'll probably do a follow-up on this or something like that. But if you enjoy games like this, I think there's a lot of meat on these bones. I think there's a lot that you can do here, and yeah, I think the combat system, everything like that, is pretty engaging. Whether it's something that holds up for 20, 30, 40 hours of gameplay is difficult to say right now, because again, the slice that we got in the demo was fairly small, but certainly the upgrades that you could do and the size of the map where you could build your base and everything like that, if that was any indication as to what we can expect from the full release, then there's gonna be a lot to do here, and probably a bunch of that's going to be super fun. Alrighty, and then this is probably the one out of the list, except for Jotunnslayer, that I was the most excited for to try, and that I walked away from the most impressed, because I just really liked it. Now, I gotta say, the only thing that I don't really like about this is the name. It just doesn't roll off the tongue, Mandragora, but I don't know, maybe, you know, it just needs to grow on me. But basically what this is it's a 2.5D side-scroller action RPG. That's a mouthful, but it's because the game is also a mouthful. There's a lot to enjoy here. Basically, you have a Metroidvania-esque kind of vibe, so think Hollow Knight, but with fucking swords and axes and shit like that, weird creatures, everything like that. It's very dark and you know, like the idea is it's a much more mature take on something like this, right? I like the combat in it, that I could see from, like, you know, managing things like stamina and so on, and being able to dodge and so on was really cool. It's got a fair bit of platforming in it as well, which took some getting used to. The platforming is, the best way I can explain it is, it feels like old school Prince of Persia. And what I mean by that is, like, when you jump, you hold on to something, you have to press like up and jump to climb out. If you just press jump, your guy lets go and then you fall. There is falling damage in the game, so that was like a muscle memory thing that I had to learn up. But the game's got crafting in it, everything like that. It's Souls-like in a way that when you save at save points, it respawns all the enemies and you can go fight them again, and you can essentially harvest them for more XP, and you use that XP. It's got a huge table where you can basically upgrade, and you can go into either strength or constitution and everything, and then basically build something with more stamina, more, you know, strength, meaning like you can cause stuff to bleed when you hit it. So there's a lot going on here. I did check out the skill tree, and it seemed, I mean, there was a lot of it, but some of the choices is weird, because it was like, I hate these skill trees that are like this thing where it's like +1 strength, and then the next node is +1 strength, and then the next node is +1 strength, cause 10% bleed. It's like, I don't, maybe it's not completely where it's going to end up yet. At least it kind of feels that way to me. But what I saw here, I really enjoyed. I like the fact that it was super tough. I saw lots of different enemy types that we were fighting, from creatures, bats, all this shit, humanoids, everything, ghouls, and some of these dudes are hitting you from range, some are hitting you with magic, everything like that. There are side quests, messing around in the fucking sewers and everything. I really like Mandragora. I really don't like the fact that we don't have a release date. So this is also set to coming soon at the moment. So this is something that I wish listed. I'll be keeping an eye on it. Demo is still up on the store if you want to check it out. Mandragora was some good shit. You better check it out. And then for our last one out of the list that I want to show today is TemTem Swarm. Now, I believe I've been told that TemTem is actually a franchise, and this is another game in the franchise, but this game particularly, TemTem Swarm, is a take of this studio or of this franchise on like the Vampire Survivor kind of, you know, type of game. So basically you have a top-down survivor wave-based, you know, roguelite, and essentially the hook in this game is, first of all, that it is also co-op. And secondly, that you have the Temtems, which are these creatures that you play with. They are like tons of them. And basically, as you complete missions and as you complete milestones, like kill X things with this and do this and finish this map and kill this boss and everything, it unlocks more of these creatures. Plus, you also have variants that can combine and everything. And there's just a ton of this stuff. Mix that in with the fact that as you are leveling up, you get of course, as usual with games like this, upgrades that you can buy in the form of cards. These will give you lightning that shoots out of you, or giant AoEs that launch, or chain attacks that as soon as you run past something. And these games tend to be, like I said, I'm always on the hunt for stuff that I can play portably, or that I can play in short little stints. Don't get me wrong, I like my games that I can sit and grind for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. Those are awesome, but I also sometimes like something that I can consume in bite-sized chunks, like 10, 15 minutes at a time. And games like this, generally, because that's the deployment of one map, you go in, you kill some shit, do some upgrades, and then switch off, and tomorrow you come back, is perfect for that sort of thing. So TemTem Swarm comes out on the 13th of November, so that's also around the corner. That's like 2.5 weeks from now. So super excited to check this out. I think it goes into early access. Dude, everything fucking goes into early access these days, so I don't know. It could be early access, it could be the full game, who knows, but it's soon, and we'll be able to see what this is like. The demo is still up for this, and the developer is insanely reactive on this title. I believe in the next fest week we saw something like 4, 5, 6 patches coming out, almost one every day, as they were addressing some bugs and issues in the game and everything, and certain skills that weren't working right and stuff. So really cool. Super excited to check this out. I'm always looking to expand my games that are like this. Like I said, Deep Rock Galactic was like the shit, and now we have Jotunnslayer and we have this, so we are eating fucking good. And that's it for the list. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. If you checked out Next Fest, or even if you didn't, you have a game that's on your peripheral that's coming up and you're really excited about it, let me know in the comments down below. If you decide to check out any of these and you end up liking them, let me know about that as well. Be pretty interesting to see if you guys dig some of the same games that I do. And of course, let me know in the comments down below if you'd like me to bring more content like this. I'm always checking out Next Fest, but I'm also checking out indie titles and stuff like that all the time. I also get sent this from developers and so on. I have a huge amount of time for this. I think it's a fantastic avenue of game development, first of all, and secondly, produces so many like unseen fucking gems that just don't get the love that they deserve. In fact, at the moment right now, I am working on a video like that with like games that came out in 24 that you haven't played yet, but you absolutely should. So if you're interested in that, then go ahead and let me know in the comments as well. Other than that, it's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Till next video, fucking cheers.